Well, I've been a busy boy this week, finishing 3 games, although one of them was the original Doom, which I finished on stream, and I finished it a bunch of times before on both the Sega Saturn as a kid, because back in those days I wasn't so big on gaming on PC, and then even more times on PC when I did get more into that side of things. But the reason I'm including it in this video is because this time, and for the first time, I beat the additional 5th episode for Doom known as Sigil, which was released as late as 2019 by Rip and Tear legend himself, John Romero. Now, I really love Doom, even when it's kicking my ass on ultraviolence, I'm always having a good time with it, but for episode 4, it's significantly harder than I ever remember it being, and Sigil is just insane. Episode 4 starts out with one of the most annoying maps I've ever played, because it has a ton of shotgunners, a Baron of Hell, and like 7 health bonuses for the entire map, which, if it was a later map, that would be fine, but with it being the first stage, it took me a good few tries to get through it. Episode 4 gets easier the deeper you go into it, while Sigil starts nuts and stays nuts the entire time. I really enjoyed the maps, and it was a solid challenge from start to finish, but John really likes to put cyber demons in the most irritating places possible. Like, if I had $1 for every time I turned a corner and immediately ate a rocket to the face, I'd have like $20. Which is like half the price of the physical edition of the game. It's a good set of maps though, and it's also completely free to download and play if you already own Doom. And if you don't, it's like £4 and one of the best games ever made, so why the fuck don't you already own it? Anyway, I started with Doom because I wanted to say something positive before I got into the other 2 games I beat this week, because I'm going to be significantly less nice about these ones. The first one was System Shock 2, which, I'll be honest, I didn't really like at all. I hate it when this happens too, because System Shock 2 is one of those revered titles, and I like Bioshock well enough, so I thought this would be a guaranteed good time, but in the end it turned out to be a complete slog. If I'm being truly honest here, I did enjoy it at the start and was initially having a great time, but after the section in hydroponics, the game just became immensely frustrating. I was playing on hard, so the enemies were kicking my ass, I didn't seem to be doing much damage with the guns, and even if I did want to defend myself, the weapon degradation mechanic just made the whole thing annoying to engage with, and that in turn made the exploration an absolute chore, which in turn made me lose interest in the story, so by the end of the game I was completely disinterested and disengaged, and just slogging through it, because I didn't want it sitting unfinished in my Steam account mockingly. I didn't at any point use psionics though, so maybe things would have been a bit less grueling if I put any points into that. But the game presented me with 3 classes at the start. I chose Soldier, and I, for the most part, stuck to being a meathead with big guns the whole time. So if the game wanted me to use psionics so badly, to have fun, then why give me the choice? Like, I can understand why people would enjoy System Shock 2, and I can understand how at the time a game like this would have been a big deal, but I don't know man, I'd rather eject myself into the vacuum than ever play this shit again. Now, System Shock 2 is a game I didn't like, but I can totally see the appeal of, but the other game I beat this week was just outright fucking bad, and I do not understand how it has a very positive rating on Steam, and that's Hatred. I picked it up a long time ago in a Steam sale out of morbid curiosity after the controversy it drummed up, but holy shit, it sucks. The first thing about it is that it seems it was made by a particularly edgy 14-year-old, but if you Google the developer, you'll depressingly find that this thing was slapped together by a bunch of grown-ass men. Now, I'm no stick in the mud. The violence and the fact that the game is about doing mass shooting doesn't really bother me. Like, really, the gameplay loop is just the same as getting bored in GTA and killing a bunch of civilians to make the wanted level go up. You know, so you get the army and the police to chase you. But there's something about this game that, for lack of a better word, is just cringe. Like, I'll be wandering down a street, gunning people, you know, police and the army come down, and then I'll do a healing execution or something, and the main character will say something stupid like, "Only my weapon understands me," and I cringe myself into a black hole. The game turned me into a cringularity, and it cannot be forgiven for such a transgression. Every time Mr. Grumpy Pants opens his mouth, I wince because I know it was written by a mid-20s to early 30s dude that thought it was awesome. The game is also ugly as fuck. The graphics themselves are fine, I guess, but the camera's pulled out like all the way, so the game is being played at an isometric perspective, and then on top of that, the entire thing is in black and white, so getting visual feedback on anything is basically impossible. The amount of times I died because while running away from people shooting at me, Mr. Grumpy Pants would get stuck on a bit of wall or a tree or something and then get gunned down to himself was hair-pullingly high. Worst of all, though, the game is just shit. Every level is basically the same. The camera makes it impossible to fight enemies without them getting a few shots at you before they're even on screen. The controls are shit, and sometimes wall vaulting just decides to take a day off. And worst of all, riding in a vehicle and trying to use the mounted machine gun, which is required in some of the later levels, causes the game to crash to desktop. Anyway, I beat it and I'm glad it's over. I'll never play it again for as long as I live. And if you are one of these mutant people that gave the game a thumbs up on Steam, can you please leave a comment as to why? Like, this is one of the few games where I cannot see the appeal in it at all. Anyway, that's it for this week. I just remembered, and I didn't write it in my script, that I also beat 2 kind of short indie things, but they were kind of, like, you know, unsubstantial, and I don't really feel like talking about them. But, yeah, hopefully the coming week will be better, and I'll only play good games instead of not weirdly designed esoteric immersive sims and juvenile shitfest for wankers. So, see ya later. Peace.